Welcome to the Jazz Notes podcast. I'm Ben Anderson.
I'm Chandler Holt.
Today is June 2nd. Man, wow. It's just Valentine's Day, and then it was just the lottery, and now it's June 2nd. And we are, 3 weeks and 2 days away from the NBA draft?
Yes.
It's crazy. So it's coming up really, really quickly here for the Utah Jazz. As always, find us on Twitter, Ben's Hoops, at Holt Sports. You can find us on Blue Sky there as well. The reason to follow us is to see the prompt every week for questions for the mailbag, which is how we wrap up the show. But you can always read our work at kslsports.com, and appreciate everyone who listens or now watches this podcast, whether you find it wherever you get your podcasts or on YouTube or at kslsports.com. So very fun. I like the video aspect, actually. I think it is a nice little plus, and hopefully we can get some more things out of it. And if you've seen TikTok clips or Instagram clips, courtesy of Tanner Tripp, who's gone and pulled clips and put them out there. We appreciate him doing that as well.
Shout out to Tanner.
And hopefully by giving him a shout out, he puts more of our videos out there. He likes us better. All right. Big news day today. We'll talk about the Austin Ainge hiring. We'll talk about it to start the show, and then obviously we get a lot of questions about it, so we will talk about some of that there. So if you feel like they really glossed over the Austin Ainge thing, it's because we get to it probably more deeply in the mailbag by answering some of the questions. And then we're going to do another player breakdown who should be in conversation for the Jazz at 5 in Jeremiah Fears, the point guard from Oklahoma. And then we'll get to the mailbag. But otherwise, not a lot of news.
There is one other small bit of news, which is that Fanatics is going to assume operations of the Jazz and Mammoth team store at Delta Center. So the store is closed starting today, and it's closed until the 8th.
Yeah. And then they'll come back and they'll have new gear.
Yes, which is awesome.
Including Ryan Smith actually shared photos today of some of the Jazz shorts.
I saw that.
He did share that. So just a story I'm going to have to write because people love their jerseys.
Yeah.
So that came out today. But let's talk about the Austin Ainge move, because it's huge.
It is.
It's a monumental move. When you hire a new president of basketball operations, that is the person who sets the culture for your organization for as long as they're here.
Yes.
And if they do a good job, you win titles. And if they do a bad job, you have to replace them and you don't get out of the cellar. And right now the Jazz are in the cellar. Mm-hmm. So you've got to figure out what that next step is going to be. And Austin Ainge, at 44 years old, steps up, and now it's his first time doing this job, but he's been with the Celtics for 17 years. He played at BYU, if you don't know some of his backstory. I think most people do, but not everyone.
And then he also coached at Southern Utah after graduating.
And then coached for the Red Main Claws, which is the then D League, now G League affiliate of the Boston Celtics. So he's just been around the program.
Yes.
Obviously, there are going to be the questions about the nepotism. And I mean, that's how he got the gig, right? Like, that's how you got your first foot in the door. It's how a lot of people get their foot in the door in sports specifically, especially in front offices. But if you were to take his name off of, his resume, and you just look at his resume alone, college basketball player, head coach in the G League, scout, worked his way up through organizations, handling draft stuff, et cetera, et cetera. These are the types of guys who get president of basketball operation jobs.
Yeah.
Now,
absolutely.
maybe he should have, maybe in other situations he would have been like the Justin Zanuck or the general manager. And maybe that's what he's doing in Boston already. In all honesty, I'm a little unclear. And even people I've talked to, I'm a little unclear of what exactly his role was in Boston.
Yes.
But now he takes over the big job. And I think as long as Danny's here, or Danny I would imagine will be here as long as he needs to make sure that Austin's fully up and going. But I think that's probably
the sign,
the baton handoff.
Yeah. His 2 titles with Boston started as director of player personnel, and then he went on to be assistant general manager. Okay. So still up in the air what his actual.
Yeah. What does that mean? That can change.
Yeah.
That the title can be the same market to market, and it can be totally different responsibilities.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Justin Zanuck as general manager does so much of the real leg work, day-to-day work, organizing phone calls, designing trades, and Danny Ainge kind of does the sign-off. That's not what every general manager does.
Yeah.
But the Jazz haven't had a vice president of basketball operations or president of basketball operations until now.
Yeah.
So,
all right, I think that's it.
Yeah, we don't need to dive. Well, again, we'll get a lot of questions
get
about
into
it
more. Yeah.
But it is huge. It's a huge day. The same way when the Jazz had Kevin O'Connor, and I remember where I was when they announced that hey, they're bringing in this guy from Houston who had been in San Antonio named Dennis Lindsey, and the shift between the Kevin O'Connor era, which I know was before you were here, Chandler, of that was the Darren Williams, Andre Karolinko, kind of that Carlos Boozer era was Kevin O'Connor. And then he left and Dennis Lindsey came in, and that turned into the kind of Rudy Gobert, Donovan Mitchell, Quinn Snyder era. It changes everything. The same way when Danny Ainge came in and moved on from Dennis Lindsey, they moved off of Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell, and they turned into the Lowry market and rebuild, et cetera. And I think there's just going to be more changes. I do think it signals a lot more changes because he doesn't have really a strong affiliation to any of these people other than his dad drafted some of them.
Yes.
So, again, we'll talk about more of this in the mailbag coming up probably 15, 20 minutes from now. So if you don't want to listen to the draft stuff, you can fast forward, but listen to the draft stuff.
Yeah.
This is the fun part of the summer
absolutely.
right now. And do you want to start with that?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's talk about Jeremiah Fears.
Okay.
I will say, coming into our, we started this even before the lottery, right? We started talking about Cooper Flagg, moving through the top 4 guys. In my head, I sort of had the top 4, which has been talked about. You have the Rutgers guys, you have Cooper Flagg, and then you have VJ Edgecombe. Everyone under that, I've sort of been like, meh about. I didn't really know what to expect, and Jeremiah Fears has that effect. I don't know what to expect from him. I think he could be awesome coming into the league, but in that same lane, he could come in and just be a Malik Monk-esque scoring backup point guard.
6'2.5" in his bare feet, 180 pounds, 6'5" and a quarter wingspan, 8'2" standing reach. So honestly, pretty bad measurements.
Yes.
He's little.
He's little.
He looks little. He's light. He's slight. He's quick. He's actually not like so jitterbug quick the way you think of some of these little guards, but he's quick. Like he's got a good first step, and he's maybe the shiftiest player we've watched so far.
I think absolutely.
I think Trey Johnson's in that conversation, but like I said with Trey Johnson, he's a lot of side to side and not forward and backwards, or certainly not forward, some backwards, some step back stuff. But like Jeremiah Fears is like wiggle, left, right, step on it, and then get to the paint. Like that's kind of what his skill is.
He can go any direction anytime. I think he has the best handle of anyone in the class.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair.
He averaged 17.1 points, 4.1 rebounds, 4.1 assists, 43.4% from the field, 28.4% from 3, which is really interesting because when you look at his shooting and then his actual shooting numbers, it kind of tells two different stories in a way because 85.1% from the line, which is awesome.
Good free throw shooter. Can get to a shot off the dribble. Like you watch the difference between VJ Edgecombe and Jeremiah Fears. Like Jeremiah looks like he's done it. VJ, sometimes you're like, have you ever done this? Have you ever dribbled into a jump shot?
Yes.
Especially if you're like operating in isolation and trying to get to like a crossover step back and pull up. It looks really goofy sometimes. Like he doesn't know how to do it. Jeremiah Fears absolutely knows how to do it. It does not go in.
Yeah.
And that's the big flaw in him. So the big question with Jeremiah Fears is he going to be big enough to do anything in the NBA defensively?
Yes.
And then is he going to be able to shoot? And it's important to remember that he reclassified in high school the same way Cooper Flagg did. So he's one of the younger players. He's truly 18 years old. He's going to be 19 by draft time, but like he's a year younger than basically everybody else in this class. And when you look at VJ Edgecombe or you look at Con Knipple, those guys are even old for their class.
Yeah.
So there might be an 18-month difference between him, Jeremiah Fears, and some of these other guys that are considered freshmen, but when their actual birth year was and how old they're going to be. So, and that, that kind of ties into perceived upside. Sometimes I think we overrate like the difference between an 18-year-old and a 19-year-old. But truly, when you're talking about playing at the highest levels of their life so far, he's been a year younger than everyone when he's been doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And something that I think is interesting is in the way that Ace Bailey and Trey Johnson are creators, and they're just like they can shoot over you and they can make these super tough shots. Jeremiah Fears is the creator, and we're like he can always get open. Like he can get down to the lane. He has the pullback, step back, side steps. He has a deep bag, if you want to use that term.
He does.
And something going into his shooting that I thought was interesting. He shot 36% from 3 catch and shoots, and then 39% catch and shoots unguarded. So I think there is something there with his 3-point shot, but I also just think the decision making, both with the ball in his hands and then ultimately when he decides to take a shot, is lacking.
There's some upside belief that I think his 3-point shooting is going to at least be respectable.
Yes.
I don't know if he's going to be like a 40% 3-point shooter, but I suspect he's like I project him, and we should talk about Isaiah Collier more coming up in this conversation. Inevitably, he's going to. I have more belief that Jeremiah Fears is going to be a good shooter than I do Isaiah Collier.
Absolutely.
So there's that aspect of it. That's kind of the shooting, and it's his biggest swing skill. Like if he doesn't shoot, he's just not an NBA player. And then when you're talking about you don't know what to expect, and you kind of look at these guys outside of the top 3 or 4, and you're like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
If he doesn't shoot, he's not an NBA player.
Absolutely.
Like I very firmly believe that, or he's a backup, and then you're drafting at the 5th pick, a backup guard, which is like the worst case scenario because backup point guards are available. Yeah. They're plentiful. It's like getting a 3rd string center. It's just like, those guys are out there. You can get Cody Zeller whenever you want. So offensively, he's more of a dynamo than he is, and it's kind of I know it's a vague term, more of an offensive dynamo than he is like one specific thing. He's like an okay scorer, 17 points per game, but like it's not 19.9 like Trey Johnson. Like he's not that level of scorer because he's not that level of shooter. 4.1 assists is like an accurate reflection of who he is.
Yeah, absolutely.
He can pass. He's got some vision. He gets into the paint and like does some kick out stuff. He also misses guys. There's some times like I watch that because I watch the full games. I'm not just watching the highlights.
Yeah.
Like there's somebody beats guys off the dribble and his like forward or big man who's standing in the dunker spot is like sitting there like, hey, I'm literally wide open and there's no one between you and me, not even a player. Like, you've beaten them off the dribble and they're behind you.
Yeah.
If you pass me the ball, I have a dunk. And Jeremiah Fears is like, I'm going to the rim. Just pass.
Yeah.
And you get a layup and you get the assist.
Yes.
And then he gets into the paint and it's like he's not a very good paint finisher because he's so little. And he's athletic. Like, I think he had more dunks than Trey Johnson this year.
Yeah, and I think he will going into next year.
Yeah, he's
well.
gonna have some weird little guy posters, some like Spud Webb posters, because he's pretty springy, he's pretty bouncy, but he's like not a great passer.
Yeah,
he's not like a super instinctual passer. I think Dylan Harper's a much better passer.
Yes.
Even though Dylan Harper's like less of a true point guard than Jeremiah Fears is, because Jeremiah Fears has to play point guard in the NBA because he's 6'2" and he'll be 6'4" in shoes. So he's just kind of more of like an I'll do everything offensively.
Yeah.
Pretty good, but he's not like a great assist man or a dynamic scorer who's going to get you 30 points per game. You're like, well, this is Isaiah Thomas, Celtics Isaiah Thomas, not Pistons Isaiah Thomas, who's like, yeah, he's 5'8", 5'9", but man, literally he's going to score 30 points a game.
Yeah.
He's not that player either. So kind of some questions there. And then defensively, I was actually surprised how hard he tried.
Yes.
There is never a moment where he's not caring. Like, I think he's really locked in. He's really trying. He's just little.
He's just small.
He's just really little, and it changes how he can be as an effective defender.
I think that I was going to point that out. He is very energetic on defense. He has a few times, I think he averaged like around 1.4, 1.6 steals a game, something like that. And most of those are passing lanes. But yeah, I think that he's not going to be a Trae Young level of bad small guard defender.
No, he's not.
But he's going to come in and he's going to try and he's going to, I think his ceiling, with that said, though, is like a neutral defender.
At best.
At best.
And you're still talking about like a really little guy who, it's why I wish I could see these guys in workouts that we just don't get to see.
Yeah.
In the past, you would get to see these guys and you think like, oh, I can see his shoulders. And like that implies like, can you add a certain amount of weight? Like I remember seeing DeJounte Murray for the first time and being like, oh, that dude can't fit through a doorway walking straight. His shoulders are so wide. Yeah. Like he's going to put on weight. He's so big. It's got that Rajon Rondo look. Like Jeremiah Fears, I can look at pictures of him, but I don't know how big his head is. Yeah. And until I can like get an idea of how big his shoulders are, like, is he actually going to get up to 210 because he's only 18 years old now and he's going to put on 30 pounds by the time his career's done? Or is he going to be 190 and just be little his whole career?
Yeah.
Like he kind of looks like Devin Harris in that body frame. And I know that's a comp that he gets a lot, which is, I get it. He's like not a great shooter, pretty speedy, good wiggle, but that doesn't really matter. So what were your thoughts on him? I mean, we just kind of broken down his game.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts on him?
And this is part of the reason why I say it's so hard to tell if he's going to be awesome or just a backup point guard in the NBA.
Because one thing I should add really quick, sorry. He has like amongst all these guys, some like true like star takeover stretches better than Con Knipple.
Yes.
Now Con didn't get the opportunity because he was playing with 4 other NBA guys. But that's also the other point. Like Jeremiah Fears wasn't playing with any other NBA guys at Oklahoma. So sometimes he had to do a lot, and he was doing a lot as an 18-year-old. Like he was doing a ton as a very young person. But there are late game situations where he takes over and hits crazy hero shots, like 3, drawing a foul to get the win, to put the team up by 1 in a 3-point situation. Late in the conference tournament in the SEC, he takes over games. He beat Kentucky and just like absolutely took over the game, including like several huge defensive plays. Like when the game's at its toughest, he gets better.
Yeah.
Which I think is where like there's some real star upside here, even though the body type doesn't traditionally lend itself to stardom.
Yes. And what I was saying is, I think, like you said, he has the foundation for a lot of these key skills, but he isn't just like amazing at any of them. And which is why I think that's interesting, because if he goes into a place where they can actually hone in on these things and develop him the right way, I think he could be awesome. I think he could be like a 22.56 assist kind of guy.
Yeah.
Like,
and what's really interesting? 4.1 rebounds
is
for a player his size is really good.
Which is awesome. Yeah.
I think he was like 3rd on his team in rebounds as a 6'2" guard.
Yeah.
He's like not afraid to mix it up. I think that does speak to the defensive aspect of like he is not afraid to get in there and use his physicality. And you actually see that when he gets downhill. We said he's not good at finishing in the paint, but man, for a little guy, he will throw his body into you. He will dislodge you. Like he will get defenders off their spot so he can get to his shots. They just don't go in very well right now, which again, he's 18. He should get a lot stronger.
Yes. Something that I thought was interesting. I mentioned that the decision making in honestly a lot of aspects, like shooting instead of passing, making shots tougher, etc. I I think that when he finally gets to the NBA and he has NBA spacing and he also has NBA level shot makers next to him, I think he could be like even more impressive in college in the NBA than he was because of that reason. Like, even though there are times when he doesn't pass when he probably should, he does make the dump off a lot of times. He can make jump passes, skip passes. And I think when you have Bryce Sensabaugh instead of your Oklahoma small forward, who probably won't make it to the NBA, I think he's could come in and be really good from day one. Like, he isn't going to be a true difference maker, but I think that the things that make him a prospective top 8 pick will shine even brighter in the NBA.
I think you're right. I think he'll have better spacing around him, and I think he'll be able to do enough early on that he can get on the court, a la Keontae George.
Yes.
The same way Keontae got on the floor early in his career. There's just kind of enough like natural basketball stuff there that he plays early.
Yes.
I agree with that. Did you like him?
I did. I wanted to ask you, if you were the Jazz, both of them are available for you, would you take Trey or Jeremiah?
Trey.
Trey.
1,000 times.
Yeah.
There's a couple things I take away, and the big one is the most obvious.
Yeah.
Which is, what is the NBA value right now? Size and shooting, and he doesn't have either.
Yeah.
It's like, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. That's honestly just the end for me. That's honestly the end of the story for me on Jeremiah Fears with the number 5 overall pick. He's not big enough, and he doesn't shoot well enough.
Yes.
And maybe he gets there, but there are other guys who are already bigger than he is that shoot well that don't. They're not point guards. Trey Johnson's never going to be a point guard. I don't think Con Knippel's going to be like a lead point guard, but I think he can probably get some backup reps. But like, they're bigger and they shoot better.
Yeah.
And are going to have similar defensive questions, but probably are going to have a higher defensive upside because of their measurements.
Yes.
So I just like don't, other than like he's young, I don't really see it.
Okay.
In all honesty, like I'm kind of, I liked watching him.
Yes.
I'm kind of out on him just in general.
Okay.
And I don't think you usually do this because you just draft best player available.
Yeah.
Like, legitimately, I don't know if he's going to be better than Isaiah Collier.
Okay.
Like, I get why he would be.
Yes.
Trust me, I get you. Like I said, I think he's going to be a better shooter in the NBA than Isaiah Collier is. Mm-hmm. I think the fact that Isaiah, even though Isaiah is really only 6'2.5" as well, like Isaiah's not much bigger height-wise. I've told you, he looks like a Minecraft character. Like, he's just a tank.
Yeah.
That's going to keep, and he's faster. He's actually faster than Jeremiah Fears is. Like, end to end, I guarantee you Isaiah Collier's faster. I think Isaiah has a chance to maybe a better chance of just sticking in the NBA because of a higher floor.
Okay. Yeah.
Because Fears, I think floor is a lot lower because he's so little. But floors, I think Fears' ceiling is higher.
Yeah. 2 things. One, I think that I have more faith in his jump shot than I think a lot of people do.
Yeah.
Just because the mechanics look good.
Fears.
Yeah. For Fears. Yeah. His mechanics look good. Like there's no glaring problem with this form. And then also, like I said, I pointed out the 36% catch and shoot, 39% unguarded catch and shoot.
And 85% free throw.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like I have faith in him being able to get to like a 36, 37.
Like, I think Isaiah Collier shot in the 60s in college.
Yeah.
From the free throw line.
Yes.
Like, he's a bad free throw shooter. He's a bad shooter.
So I have faith, but I do agree with you. I would take Trey 100% over I would take Jeremiah. And I do think that his floor is like super low. Like, he could maybe even like be out of the NBA in a few years because he just doesn't put on any weight. He never comes around with the IQ department.
Yeah, it's like James Bouknight.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
And he's a better passer. He's probably like got a better head on his shoulder than James Bouknight, but like those guys work themselves out of the league.
Yeah. For comparisons, how I do this is I like to give like an almost unrealistic best case scenario.
Yeah, of course.
And for that, I put Kyrie, which is just like, I don't see him ever getting to like the 50, 40, 90. Like, absolutely not. He's never going to be as good as a shooter as Kyrie is. But he has that sort of look of him. Like, his handle is crazy. And then more realistic, I have Monte Ellis and Terry Rozier.
Yeah, there's like a lot of Terry Rozier there.
Yes.
I think I'd maybe say best case scenario is like Celtics Isaiah Thomas, which is like, that's his all-star path.
Yeah.
I think Isaiah made 2 all-stars.
Yes.
That's like the pathway.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, might be able to carry, like, again, offensive dynamo, really can score, et cetera, figures out how to get a shot off in the paint, but is so fatally flawed that it's like the Celtics were happy to build up his value and trade him.
Yes.
Danny Ainge was happy to get rid of him, even though he was, playing like a top 25 player in the league.
Yeah.
My hot take.
Okay.
This is going to be crazy.
Yeah.
I'm going to give him the Cam Whitmore Award.
Okay.
There's a chance like he's on the board at 21. And
Really?
I know that's crazy because everyone's like, no, he's going to go 5 or 6 or 7.
Yeah.
Like, Cam Whitmore was guaranteed to go 4 on draft night. And then it was like the night before, people were like, he might be on the board at 9 for the Jazz.
Yeah.
And the Jazz passed on him when they took Taylor Hendricks, and the Jazz passed on him when they took Keontae George.
Yeah.
When he fell to whatever, 17, 18, 19, whatever it was, to the Houston Rockets. Like, there's a bad situation here, and I'll just pull up the draft order, where if he gets past like Brooklyn, who just took Bub Carrington, like I totally get why they would pass on him. They just drafted a guy in the lottery that's a point guard. Like the Pelicans have two little guys who can score already, and DeJounte Murray they didn't really get a full season of, so they'll probably rather see what he does. The Nets might take him, but like let's say the Nets take Yegor Demon, which is kind of the popular, like that's kind of the in vogue thing. Everyone thinks that's what they're going to do. And like this Raptors probably go with a big guy.
Yeah.
Maybe go with like Kamen Malawash. Trailblazers definitely don't need another little guard. They've got Scoot Henderson, who they just drafted. I think the Bulls are going to pay Josh Giddey. It's just like the Spurs aren't going to take him because they can't take another non-shooting guard. They've got De'Aaron Fox. Maybe the Thunder just say like, hey, it's best player available. Yeah. We have the ability to take best player available. But like, that's 15 already.
True.
Like, and we haven't even talked about like Yakashonis going off the board. Or another point guard out of nowhere jumping up and someone being like, we actually like Neat Clifford, who's like kind of going to play. He's bigger and plays the 1 and the 2.
Yeah.
It's like Nolan Traore jumps up out of nowhere. It's like he falls to 21 in that situation. Like I would never use the 5th pick on him.
Yeah.
If it were me. And maybe the Jazz are going to do it. Maybe because I'm saying that they're going to be it. I'm going to be like, I got to talk this guy in draft night now. But I think there's like a real, like, there's a chance he's on the board at 21.
That's crazy. Off of your hot take, I'm going to ask you a question. Jazz take Connor Trey at 5. Uh-huh. Do they take him at 21 if he's there?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good draft.
Yeah.
No, he's awesome at 21. Yeah, absolutely. I really like him as the 21st pick.
Yeah.
I like him as like the 12th pick, in all honesty. But you know what? Like I think he's a worse prospect than Rob Dillingham was last year.
Okay.
And Rob Dillingham, I think, went 8.
Yes.
The Spurs traded.
The Timberwolves traded.
The Spurs had the pick, and they traded it for a future unprotected pick. Like, and I actually think Rob Dillingham in a worse draft is a better prospect than I think Jeremiah Fears is.
Yeah.
Because Rob Dillingham is just such a good shooter.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're both going to be such negative defensive players because of their size that I would probably take Rob. And Rob went 8th in a bad draft, a much worse draft than this year's draft.
True.
So I think it's too high to take him at 5.
Okay.
But if he was there at, like, even if he was there at like 17 or 18 and someone was like, yeah, we'll take your 2 second-round picks and 21.
Yeah.
And you wanted to move up and get him, and you're like, I actually think there's like enough star here that maybe he's better than Isaiah and better than Keontae that you take him. Like, I think that's good. I just wouldn't take him at 5.
Honestly, I think that, and again, I'm sitting here with a mic. I have no experience in this aspect, but I would only take him at or 18 to 21 if you're the Jazz, if you take like Con at 5. Because if you're taking both Trey and him, then it's like, now you have Trey, Jeremiah, Keontae, Isaiah, Colin Sexton. Yeah. And you're like, what are we going to do?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Unless you know you're trading several of those guys. I think he's a bad fit. Mm-hmm. I actually think his skill set is a bad fit right now with the Jazz right now as far as another non-shooter. And I think you can get better value. And like, I have more faith in, and like, I'm not saying Trey Johnson is going to be an amazing defender, but I think his defensive ceiling is higher than Jeremiah's. Yeah, absolutely it is.
Yeah,
he didn't show it, and the effort wasn't as high as Jeremiah Fears in college, but yeah, he's 6'6" with a 6'10" wingspan. It's like that. Unfortunately, like I watched the Pacers beat the Knicks, and it's like, yeah, Tyrese Halliburton's a terrible defensive player, but he's also 6 inches taller than Jalen Brunson, and that helps. So when he needs to block an OG Anunoby 3, he blocks it.
Yeah. And here's the funny thing about Jeremiah Fears. I would say the 3 biggest problems for the Jazz were defense, shooting, and taking care of the ball.
Yeah, and
he does.
Yeah, we didn't talk about his turnovers. He averages 4.1 assists and 3.4 turnovers.
I think it's like 1.2 turnover to assist.
Yeah, he's just not. He doesn't take care of the ball.
Yeah.
So you're right. He accentuates everything the Jazz are bad at already. Yeah. But there's some star upside.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah.
But there is with everybody. Colin Knippel has star upside. Yeah. Trey Johnson has real star upside. And so does the guy I think we should talk about next week, Derek Queen.
Okay.
Let's talk about Derek next week.
Yeah.
And then honestly, we're kind of running out of guys who I think are going to be in conversation at 5, which is the nice thing about 5. You're not looking at 15 guys. And then we'll probably start looking at some other players in the 20s and kind of around that range because, man, the more I look at this, like the way I'm talking about Jeremiah Fears going from 5 to 21, that's going to happen with other guys as well.
Yes.
This is going to be an interesting draft. I think this could be a Dante Exum, Rodney Hood-like situation for the Jazz as well, where hopefully you get a better player than Dante Exum at 5. But like Jazz fans were stunned that Rodney Hood was on the board when they drafted in the 20s in that draft. I think he went 27 overall as well, but I can't remember exactly. Maybe it was 22.
Yeah.
You're going to have a similar situation where Jazz are like, man, I heard that guy talked about it like at 12. and he's going to be on the board at 21. That's going to happen in this draft because it's pretty flat, and there's going to be, a guy could slip really quickly. Yeah. So that's it for Jeremiah Fears. He's the player I've liked the least of the ones we've watched so far.
Agree.
But with Cooper and Dylan Harper off the board, he gets more into that conversation. I get why he's in the conversation, but he's the player I've liked the least of that group. All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll get to the mailbag. Stick around. More Jazz Notes coming up next. Welcome back to the Jazz Notes podcast. Ben Anderson, Chandler Holt. All right, Chandler, let's get to the mailbag. As always, about 11 o'clock every Monday, I send out this tweet. I also put it on Blue Sky, whatever they call them on Blue Sky, and you can respond to it just saying, send us your mailbag questions. Yes. We'll respond to them on the episode, and that's what we're doing now. And we'll start with Blue Sky. There's just fewer followers over there, so we'll just burn through the questions a little bit more quickly. And some of the questions we got on Blue Sky repeated on Twitter, so we'll actually get to one on Twitter this time, just because I like to mix it up. But Brandon Stone did ask on Blue Sky, is the front office philosophically in a swing for the fences mode with these picks due to the current collection of young players, or are they more inclined to play it safe? At 5, I guess inherently, here's the truth. When you're drafting this high in the lottery, you're hoping to get a player that changes your franchise.
Yes.
So technically they're all swing for the fences a little bit. Some guys are less swing for the fences. We were just talking about Jeremiah Fears. If the Jazz take Jeremiah Fears at 5, that's a way higher swing for the fence than Con Knipple, I guess. Con's maybe the safest player.
Yes.
But I think that makes people think that there's no star upside there, and I actually think there's real star upside for Con Knipple as well. But just of the names that are available, and I'll just ask you. Yeah. You tell me what you think. Is VJ Edgecombe a swing for the fences guy?
No.
Is Ace Bailey a swing for the fences guy?
Yes.
Is Trey Johnson a swing for the fences guy?
That's the biggest toss-up, I'd say, but yes.
Jeremiah Fears, we just said yes, and Derek Queen, we haven't talked about yet. Common Malawash, those are two other guys. I think those are actually both swing for the fences guys. Yeah. Common Malawash only is a swing for the fence because it means you're replacing Walker Kessler. It has fallout implication.
Yeah. Derek
Queen's just another big guy who the upside is he's, a Boogie Cousins type offensive juggernaut. It's not the right comp for him. Yeah. And I just haven't watched enough of him, but that's what you're hoping for versus he's safe and I just know what he's going to do, which is there's guys like Colin Murray Boyles, who we'll have to talk about at some point, who is another one of these guys who's going to get mentioned 6 or 7 that could be on the board at 21. That's a way safer pick because he's just the best defensive player. So I think actually just inherently due to the names that are there, most of them are swing for the fences players. But that's who's in the draft at the top. That's one and done players that you get in the top 5 or 6 of most drafts. There's not a lot of guys unless you take Zach Edey at 6, which he went 9 last year. Yeah. That's a perceived safe pick, I guess.
Yeah. I agree with you. And I think that we won't really know because the question was, what is the front office doing? Right. Basically. Right.
Yeah.
I think we won't really know until the draft comes, because also I think that what the Jazz do will kind of give us a sense of what is going to happen a year from now.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if they take Con Knipple, who projects to be a high-level role player, and that is not a bad thing in any sense of the word. Just looking on to hopefully getting that superstar next year.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of thought. We talked about this after the Jazz lost the lottery of where are you putting your chips on the board now, and how are you going to gamble and risk that, and maybe you go a little bit higher risk on trades and a little bit lower risk on the draft.
Yes.
The truth is there's just no zero risk draft players, right? Guys bust every year, but teams, I will say, for example, passed on Tyrese Halliburton thinking he was a safe pick and he falls to 11, and Tyrese Halliburton's the best player on the finals team now.
Yeah.
That's Con Knipple, right? So if you're saying pass on Con Knipple because he's the safe bet because there's not the Jeremiah Fears type upside, it's be careful with that.
Yeah.
Because Con Knipple is a safe pick the same way Tyrese Halliburton was a safe pick, and people are I think we might be able to get more. There might be more there. And then he slips to 11. And it's okay, well, now he's the best player on a finals team.
Yeah.
And I'm not betting on that. The same way I wouldn't bet on that with Tyrese Halliburton, but Tyrese Halliburton's showing it's possible. And Con Knipple is that type of he's that caliber of player in college that might have that type of upside. So I think kind of inherently it's a swing for the fences just because of what you're doing. And there's just not a lot of truly safe bets here. But I think the way you probably recognize you're going to have another high draft pick next year means that you can probably afford to play a little bit safe knowing that you're going to take another huge whack at it next year.
Yes, absolutely.
So that's how I would approach it, I guess. So yeah, that's why I would go with Trey Johnson or Con Knipple over Jeremiah Fears, because like I would hope that I win the lottery, and if I have to get Darren Peterson next year as my future point guard, fine, I got him there.
Yeah.
But I'm not taking that swing this year.
Anything else on Blue Sky?
There are some, but I think they're replicated in Twitter, so let's do that.
Okay. So I'm going to combine, give a shout out to a few people.
But shout out to Alex from PGH and Alex Currett, 2 different Alexes on Blue Sky for sending in questions.
Okay.
We see you.
Yes. From Tim Hazard, and then also, let me scroll down here, Sarah, basically just asking, can you clarify the job descriptions between Danny Ainge, Austin Ainge, and Justin Zanuck? There's a lot of confusion about what the positions are and what they do.
We will get better clarity on this today at 3 o'clock. I'm going to go over to the press conference and talk to them over there and figure out exactly kind of how this is going to work. Look, traditionally how it works is like the president of basketball operations is the number one guy. Now, traditionally, you don't have a president of basketball operations with the CEO, which is Danny Ainge.
Yes.
I would still bet Danny Ainge is like the final say guy right now. And they may even say that's not true. And I still think if you're talking about your dad, who's a future Hall of Famer, is in the room with you and your dad wants to lean one way, I doubt if it's like going between Jeremiah Fears for Austin Ainge and Con Knippel for Danny Ainge that they go with Jeremiah Fears. Yeah. But maybe I'm totally wrong. Maybe I'm wrong on that. But I still kind of think as long as Danny's there, he's going to be the man.
Yeah.
But I do suspect that immediately Austin Ainge steps over Justin Zanuck because his title's higher.
Yeah.
President of basketball operations is higher than general manager. You become a general manager, then you become VP of basketball ops, and then president of basketball ops. And generally, the VP of basketball ops is already the highest. They just get promoted to president because people like name changes or title changes. It really doesn't do a whole lot different. So I just think that's what it is. I still think Danny Ainge is kind of like the overlord number one. Yeah. Austin's like the strong number 2, but maybe like 1A, 1B. Mm-hmm. And then I think it comes into like Justin Zanuck, Will Hardy, the head scouts, Sean James, et cetera, and down the line.
All right.
And then Ryan Smith is in that conversation as well. I mean, ultimately, if Ryan Smith wanted to say, hey, when you call on draft night, you're taking Trey Johnson, they have to take Trey Johnson. Like, it doesn't matter what Danny says. So, but he's smart enough to get out of the way.
Yeah. Next up, an interesting one from G-Dub. If you swap out any player besides Halliburton from the Pacers and replace them with Lowry, do they still win the East?
Yeah, he's like a better player than Andrew Nembhard.
Yeah. I would say I don't think for Pascal. I think...
No, Pascal's better.
Yes.
Pascal's a better player than Larry Markkinen is.
Yeah.
Which is a good reminder. Like, they got Pascal for kind of a song. I'd have to go back and look at exactly what they traded for him. I don't remember all the salaries that went back to Toronto, but like, it wasn't crazy. It was Bruce Brown, right?
Yeah, I think so.
And like 3 draft picks. Like, not great draft picks. Mm-hmm. That was a really good trade. And they paid a price. They pushed all in. That's what their chips were for.
Yeah.
But that was a smart trade. Pascal's a better player than Lowry.
I was going to say, if you wanted to say, and it's like, you can argue that like Lowry was not at his best last season, didn't have his foot fully on the gas and all that. If you wanted to argue that Lowry at his peak is better than Pascal, I would listen to you. But I also just think that Siakam fits better with what Indiana's doing.
He's a 2-way player, 20 point per game for most of the last, 6 or 7 years in the NBA. He also won most improved player at one point in his career. He's not as big as Lowry, but he's not way far off. Probably 3 or 4 inches shorter. Yeah. But he's just a way better 2-way player. He's a much better passer. He's probably a more cerebral player. And in a playoff game, when you need him to score 30, he does. And it's what he's done. How many times did he do it? He did 3 times in this series alone? Mm-hmm. Like, Pascal rules. But it's also a reminder of like, Pascal was available. Like, he's just out there. And the Raptors were like, do you want him? Someone take him. Like, and I said this for a long time, like the Cavaliers absolutely should have traded Darius Garland for Pascal when that trade was on the table, or when I should say Pascal was on the table 2 years ago before this trade was made. Like, if I were them and I had Donovan Mitchell and I know I needed a big wing, I would have kicked down the door to get Pascal. I never understood why that didn't get more traction. It just felt so obvious. And the Raptors at the time needed a point guard because they had Scotty Barnes. Like, it was just like, it made so much sense. It was so weird that deal didn't ever like get talked about, or at least didn't get much traction. But in retrospect, like, clearly the Cavs should have done that.
Yes.
But good for the Pacers. I love this Pacers team. They're really fun to watch. So,
absolutely.
No, I mean, and obviously, Lowry can't step in and play center like Miles Turner. Like, Miles Turner's a stretch big also, but he's actually a pretty good shot blocker. He's not a great rim protector or a defender, but he's like a good shot blocker.
Yeah.
So, no, and I mean, the reason the Pacers work so well is they're a good team.
Yeah.
They've got a good point guard. He's flawed. He doesn't play defense, but Nembhard plays a lot of defense. And then they've got, what's his name, coming off the bench, who's a very good defensive player as well. Their backup point guard.
TJ McConnell.
And then
Nesmith.
And Nesmith, who's a great wing defender.
Yep.
And They just got a ton of depth.
Yeah.
So it's just a really well-built team. So yeah, like where do you plug Lowry in there? It's like, it would unbalance the roster.
Yeah.
But that's not a knock on Lowry. It's just this roster is designed really well.
Yeah.
So, and Lowry's still a heck of a player.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Also really worth reminding, if we want to talk about like how this works, if you were to find like a level comp for Lowry, meaning like who's a player who's like, if Lowry's the 25th best player in the NBA, this guy's 24th or 26th, it's probably Domantas Sabonis.
Yeah.
I'm like, the Pacers traded Domantas Sabonis for Tyrese Halliburton.
Yes.
So like when you're talking about moves this offseason, like we've thrown out Jalen Green, we've thrown out some of these other names that are out there. Like it's kind of how you got to keep assets alive.
Yeah.
Like you talked about it. It was astute. It's like the Pacers and the Thunder are both here on the backs of Paul George trades, which is really funny. The Pacers traded him to the Thunder for Sabonis.
Yep.
Right? And Victor Oladipo?
Yes.
And then they traded Victor Oladipo for Sabonis.
Yeah.
Or no, they got Sabonis back in that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And then they traded Sabonis for Tyrese Halliburton. It's like Donovan Mitchell got you Lauri Markkanen. And maybe the question then is, what does Lauri Markkanen get you?
Yeah.
And really, that's the fallout of the Donovan Mitchell trade. And Lowry's just like the placeholder who maintains value until you get the right guy in the spot.
Yes,
the same way the Pacers didn't get proper value back from Paul George until they got Tyrese Halliburton.
Yeah.
It's kind of how you have to view players. It's unromantic. It doesn't allow you to fall in love with the players as individuals, which is the fun part about being a fan.
Yes.
But that is, I think, how the Jazz are probably viewing it. Just to let you peek behind the scenes.
Next up from Riley O'Brien. With the Spurs getting Dylan Harper plus having Rookie of the Year and Wemby, and the Thunder in the same conference/division, are we looking at those two in the next few West Finals? How are the Jazz ever going to get this done? To answer that last part, I would say maybe like a month ago, it was like the Cleveland Cavaliers are a 60-plus win team, and it's the best version of the Cavaliers without LeBron James, and the Celtics are the reigning champions, and they have 5 players who can shoot. They have 4 offensive creators, and they have an amazing defense.
Yeah.
Guaranteed to be the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah.
Neither of them are there.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the league is more unpredictable than ever.
Yeah.
And it's hard to keep these windows open for a long time. And again, we're going into year 3 of Wemby now.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. I don't think Wemby's going to stay healthy personally because the guys that have come in the NBA in recent years that were like, man, if he stays healthy, he's going to be awesome. But those guys were Zion and Joel Embiid. And have they stayed healthy?
No.
They have not. So, we're already seeing it with Wemby. And I get this was like a blood clot issue, and ideally it clears up. But it's like, okay, he's just missed a lot of basketball already in 2 years. It's like it's a foot, or it's going to be a back, or it's going to be a knee. And it's like Ralph Sampson was the same player.
Yeah.
It's like there's just bodies aren't designed that way. I just truly believe that. That's why I think the 6'8" guys in the NBA are dominating right now, or at least have real value, or why Nikola Jokic is just kind of a big body.
Yeah.
But and he's lumbering, but he's not athletic, so he's not jumping. So he's not blowing out his knees because he's never jumping.
Yeah.
It's like he runs. He's gotten thinner, he's in good shape, but he's not risking his body athletically. And Wemby's jumping and going side to side and stepping back.
Yeah.
I can just see it in my mind. I hate to even talk about it, but you saw the step back from Jason Tatum and the Achilles thing. And I can just close my eyes and see it with Wemby, right? At that size. So no, nothing's guaranteed in the NBA. That's just the truth of it. Which again is why if I were the Spurs, again, I've even mentioned if I'm the Thunder.
Yeah.
If I feel my window's open and I can trade for Giannis, I'm trading for him. Because there's nothing guaranteed. And Giannis is what is guaranteed is he's a top 4 player in the NBA. And you're adding that to your roster. So no, I don't I just don't believe anyone's got a long window or a long runway.
And here's the thing with the Thunder, with Shea, J-Dub, and Chet, they're about to get absolutely demolished, worse than we even saw with the Nuggets a few years ago by the second apron. They're going to have to make some huge changes, I feel like.
Because Shea signs the Supermax because he's the MVP.
Yeah.
J-Dub's now made one All-Star team, so I don't think he's quite qualified for the next level max, but he will get a max. Chet's going to get a max, and then Chet can go into the Defensive Player of the Year award, which I think could raise his money unless Victor gets it, but Chet's going to be in that conversation at some point as well. There's just they're going to get super expensive. And they've done a good job of managing their accounts, but even then it's you just add $40 million to your contract or 3 $40 million deals and you're already at 120, but Shea's actually at 60 million.
Yeah, I think Shea's eligible for something 65, something ridiculous.
So it's no, you're at 140 million with 3 players. And if Chet gets hurt, which by the way, Chet has a broken foot and a broken hip in his first 2 years, if Wemby's not going to stay healthy, there's no guarantee Chet is either. And Wemby's bigger than Chet, but like Chet's already shown how hard it is to be that size and play a lot of games. So, Kristaps Porzingis hasn't made it.
Yeah.
He's never healthy. He's 7'4". It's like probably not going to be together forever. Yeah. They're well positioned to be good for a long time. They've got all these draft picks, but then they've got to like keep hitting on them.
Yeah.
It's like they lucked into getting Jalen Williams at 12. Good for them. They drafted a great player. They're not going to, that doesn't guarantee they do it every year.
Yes.
So I just don't believe anyone has a long runway in the NBA as currently constituted.
Yes.
But you're right. The Celtics, we thought, oh man, if there was going to be a future dynasty, it's probably them. And then their best player tears his Achilles, and they're talking about trading all these guys this offseason.
Yeah.
There's talks now about Austin Ainge trading for Jaylen Brown to the Jazz.
Yes.
Like, does he bring Jalen with him? Like, that's how quickly it changes.
All right, next up from Tim Hazard. Do Sexton and Collins have positive trade value? Confused why they weren't moved last year. Was there no market or just scraps for offers? Is their market better now versus last year with only 1 year left on their contracts?
Yes. Yeah. There's no such thing as a bad 1 year contract.
Yeah.
Bradley Beal is the worst contract in the league, but when it gets down to 1 year, it has value.
Mm-hmm.
So those guys will have value.
Yeah.
Like I've talked about like Jonathan Kuminga for John Collins, I think actually makes a lot of sense. Like the Warriors probably need like a fifth best starter. I think John Collins could really be that, or like a great sixth man.
Mm-hmm.
I think John Collins could really fit and does like some of the same things Quentin Post does, knocking down threes as a big man, but actually like does some other things.
Yeah.
Which would really, really helpful for them. And like, he probably is going to cost, we know what he costs, $26 million next year. So I think that's beneficial. So I think there'd probably be some interest there. I've told you I thought Colin Sexton would make a lot of sense in like Orlando.
Mm-hmm.
I think that'd be a great fit for him. So I think those guys are going to have value. And yeah, they probably didn't have that much value. Again, the middle class contracts didn't get traded last year.
I was going to say, we talked about this around the trade deadline. Like our episode around then was like, it was either like De'Aaron Fox,
Jimmy Butler,
and then like super low level deals. Like there wasn't really the solid starter trades.
Yeah, guys making 18 to 25 million weren't really moved.
Yeah,
and those guys don't get moved in season a lot.
Yeah.
So I think there's a better chance to get moved this summer, and certainly the Jazz will kick the tires on that.
Oh yeah.
So and there's but yes, to answer the question, I think they have value. I mean, those are good players.
Yes,
I know they've kind of got the reputation of like guys who've never won a whole lot. John Collins had one playoff run. Colin Sexton's never been in the postseason, but like, I think Collins like legitimately a good player.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I feel the same way about John Collins. I think both those guys are legitimately good players, and in the right situations could be extraordinarily valuable.
Next from Jimbo Slice, who do you think the Jazz should take? Con Kennard or Jeremiah Bogues?
I don't know who those players are, and you don't know who those players are either. So, but give me Bogues.
Yeah. Who have the Jazz had in for workouts? This is from Holly Hardy. Any news on who is coming?
From the combine, the Jazz felt confident. It sounded like that they could get everybody basically not named Dylan Harper or Cooper Flag.
Okay.
So VJ, Ace Bailey, Jeremiah Fears. So I've done the thing because it's the Jazz don't let us know who's been working out for them. I've honestly just gone and followed all these guys on Instagram, and you'll see like who posts that like I'm at the Grand America today, which is like how you find out. Another weird one that I follow is like some of the Pacers writers randomly, because the Pacers are one of the few teams that still let you have access to the workouts. Yeah. Now it'll be less this year. And the Jazz aren't drafting in a similar spot to them. So maybe what you need to do is look at writers from other teams drafting in a similar spot to the Jazz that have open workouts. Because a lot of times guys will be like at that team and then go to the Jazz. Okay. And they will ask, one of the common questions when you're interviewing draftees is like, where have you worked out or where are you working out next? So last year, maybe it was 2 years ago. It was 2 years ago when the Jazz were at 9 and I think the Pacers were at 8. You found out a lot of like who was coming through to the Jazz because they would work out with the Pacers and be like, yeah, my next stop is Utah. Like every single time they said that. So you would find out who was coming in. So look around like who's drafting at number 4, Charlotte, or who's drafting at number 6, Washington, and see who works out for them and see if their interviews, if they say I'm going to Utah next. But if they're working out for Charlotte, they're working out for Utah.
Yeah.
If they're working out for Washington, they're working out for Utah. So I would imagine Ace, Con, Jeremiah, Trey Johnson, VJ, all those guys are going to be there. Again, like, man, it takes one team to be like, Jeremiah Fears at 3. And again, that it just so doesn't make sense for the 76ers or Charlotte, particularly unless Charlotte was like, we're trading LaMelo and we're going to draft Jeremiah Fears. But like, Con Knippel goes at 4. You have Trey Johnson and Ace Bailey on the board.
Yeah.
So he's not that hard to do. And like, 'cause Ace Bailey or Con Knibble's really in the conversation for those teams at 3 and 4. I promise you, like really in those conversations. Or if Trey Johnson goes 3 or 4, then there's a chance that like Con, Ace Bailey, and VJ Edgecombe are on the board at 5.
Yeah.
Like there's a chance like at least two of those guys are going to be on the board for the Jazz. So it's going to be an interesting draft night. It's going to be really fascinating. We're really not going to know. You know, the Taylor Hendricks draft was so fascinating because there were 9 guys. And like DJ and PK will tell you this story. Like Taylor Hendricks was just number 9 on the Jazz board, and all the 8 guys they had ahead of him went ahead of him.
Yeah.
So they just drafted him 9th. It was like he was the 9th guy, and I think Keontae was 10th on their board or whatever. But like they didn't get a chance to draft those first 8 guys, and so they just took the 9th guy on their board. This is going to be interesting to that point. I don't think this is quite that draft.
Yeah.
You know, and that doesn't mean the Jazz aren't going to take the best player available. They're not going to, but like, I don't think it's just going to be like what's left of the group. That's not going to be the spot where the Jazz in. I don't think the Jazz are like, well, these are the only 5 guys. Like, I think there's going to be 7 guys that are going to be projected all over this top 5, and the Jazz are going to have 3 or 4 names to pick from.
Next up, from James McKinney, will there be a watch party for the draft this year?
I don't know. I'm going to ask tonight.
We haven't heard about it yet.
At the Austin Ainge thing. I'll try and talk to some people and figure out what the plans are there, because obviously they don't have a building to host it in.
Yes.
It's unfortunate for hockey too, because they actually got the 4th pick.
Yeah.
That would have been fun to have the draft party. I thought the NHL draft party last year was really cool. I stopped in. So maybe, they could do it somewhere else, but there's not like a logical spot to do it. I mean, you could go to a restaurant, but they can't host 18,000 people.
Yeah, true.
So, or 4,000 people. So I'll be curious how they do it. I'm not totally sure. But having the 5th pick is like a big deal. It'd be exciting too.
Yeah. Josh Chisholm. Do you think the Jazz should try to move up to 3? I see so many people thinking they should try, and I just don't see much of a difference between a player you could get at 3 and a player you could get at 5.
If you were like locked in, it has to be Ace Bailey or it has to be VJ Edgecombe. Yeah, trade up. Like, because you're not giving up 10 pieces. You're not giving up Lowry in the 5th pick to get to 3 and not getting something significant back.
Yeah.
If it was if you had to give up 5 and 21 to move up to 3, and you were sure there was a guy there that you were like, this is worth betting on, you make that trade 100% of the time.
Yeah.
Because 21 is just not that valuable pick.
True.
Like I really like the depth of this draft. I'm going to tell you truthfully, I'm more excited to look at the players at 21 than I am at 5, just because there's more variety.
Yes.
There's like a lot more of like the fun draft part of it, of just like, what if this guy does do this? Versus like, I kind of have a good sense of what these top 5 or 6 guys are going to do. And I think the Jazz will as well. It gets a little more interesting because there's so much more question of who's going to be on the board at 21. It gets more fun just from like a speculation standpoint. But like 21 is just not that valuable historically. Like,
yes.
I wrote an article last week on the best 21st overall picks. It's like Rajon Rondo's easily the best. And like, look, if you drafted Rajon Rondo at 21, you had a great draft.
Yeah.
He made 4 All-Star teams and is a borderline Hall of Famer, won a title his rookie season. But like, it's just a bad pick.
Yeah.
It's not a very good pick historically. So yeah, if you could get up to 3 and you're like, Ace Bailey, he's going to be a star. Yeah, you make that trade a million times out of a million. The same way when the Jazz fell in 2005, from 3 to 6 or whatever it was, and they traded the 6th pick to the Trailblazers with like the 21st pick and the 29th pick. No one can tell you who got drafted 21st and 29th.
Yeah.
And the Jazz got Darren Williams instead of Martell Webster. Martell Webster was out of the league within 5 years, and Darren Williams was a several-time All-Star and a very high-level All-NBA player. So you make that trade.
Yeah. Speaking of what you just said with the 21st pick and like the speculation, what if aspect of all the players around that range, that's why I came in saying I was confused about Jeremiah Fears, because I sort of had that for him, and which is why it makes sense, aligns with you saying he could fall. Because like I feel like with everyone we talked about before, it was like you can expect like there looks something like this in the NBA, and I think it's really 2 paths for Jeremiah.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, I just want to go back and look at who the Jazz traded. The Jazz traded in 2005 the first pick. Oh, this is funny. And 2 other later firsts. Linus Klieza, who actually ended up being an okay NBA player, but has funny Jazz history for a couple of reasons, including he just used to torch the Jazz. I think he had a 40-point game against the Jazz one night. Wow. And then Joel Freeland, who never turned into anybody. Yeah. So, yeah, Martell Webster, Linus Klieza, and Joel Freeland for Darren Williams. It's like a great trade. So, yeah, you trade 21 and 5 to move up to 3 if there's a guy you love at 3. But, again, to our point, the Jazz's board, whoever's on the board at 3 might be there at 5. It only takes 2 teams, and it takes like legitimately 1 player.
Yes.
So I think there's a real chance. And And because the Jazz need,
No, you're good.
Like, the Jazz need a guy.
Yeah.
The Jazz need like a star. We've talked about the Jazz need a gravity to build around. That is not the case for the Philadelphia 76ers.
No.
They have 3 guys already, and they may have 4 in Jared McCain.
Yeah.
Like, they don't need to be like, we got to go all in on Ace Bailey.
Yeah,
Now,
no.
maybe they just think Ace is the best player available and might be a star in the future, and they take him. I totally get it if they do, and I think that's the smart thing. But they may say, man, we love Jared McCain. What if we get a bigger version in Con Knipple and we can play them both at the same time? Like, maybe that just rules.
Yeah.
And it does rule. That would be very hard team to guard defensively. And so they take Con, and then, you're guaranteed VJ or Ace Bailey or Trey Johnson's on the board. You get 2 of them on the board for you at 5s. It's like, then how much are you actually willing to give up versus the chance that, like, at 21, somebody has really slipped to you, like a Yegor Demon or a Jeremiah Fears or somebody like that.
Speaking of trading both the picks, Clayson Searle says opinions on this trade, and he sent a screenshot of a successful trade in Fanspo. Lauri Markkanen, the 21st and the 5th pick for Harrison Barnes, Keldon Johnson, Blake Wesley, number 2 and number 14 from the Spurs.
Oh, from the Spurs.
Yeah.
Say the players again. Harrison Barnes,
Keldon Johnson, and Blake Wesley for Lauri Markkanen, and then 521, 214.
I'm the value of getting up to 2 and getting that guy in Dylan Harper who has real all-star upside and it's like the face of your franchise for a while.
Yeah.
I think makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
So,
the thing though is, and I wrote about this like right after the Jazz fell to 5, which is like, I don't think the Spurs are trading 2 unless they're getting like Giannis level, like top 5. I don't even think they'd do the trade for Kevin Durant.
they might not.
There's rumors that there's interest in it. I don't know if they would trade 2 for it, but they could
straight
end up
up,
doing that.
straight up for Kevin Durant. I don't know.
Yeah.
It seems a little rich.
Yeah. Next up from Brady NBA. What's the Walker Kessler contract conversation going to look like? Is he going to try and squeeze out more than he's worth? And if so, do the Jazz move him?
I did write about this a couple of months ago. Probably a month ago, maybe 6 weeks. And I just looked at like the guys in the NBA, and the truth is, if you're a starting center in the NBA, you're probably getting 25 to 30 million. And I know that sounds crazy. We are just always like a year or 2 behind on accepting just what good salaries are in the NBA and what it costs to have guys at this level. Like Jakob Poeltl, I think, is making 20 and is on the low end.
Yeah.
I think Nick Claxton was the player I looked at as the closest comp to Walker Kessler when it comes to age and production. And I think Nick Claxton, I'll pull up his contract for you right now, signed a 4-year, $100 million deal.
Yeah, 25.
Yeah, he signed, and it's decreasing. And then again, that's the nice, you can work with Walker. Like Nick Claxton's deal this year was $27 million. Next year it's 25. Year after that's 23. 2027, 28, it's 20. Like maybe you just draw that number out and say, Walker, this is it.
Yeah.
Like, do you want to make $100 million? Here's a 4-year, $100 million deal for you today.
Yeah.
If you want to pass on it, that's fine. The nice thing for the Jazz is he's a restricted free agent next summer. So if he doesn't agree to a deal, who cares?
Yeah.
Like you don't have to go way over, but guys get paid in the NBA. Teams pay their players because they don't want to anger them.
Yeah.
You know, the Jazz made Gordon Hayward go find a max contract, and he resented it throughout his whole deal to the point where when he left for Boston, he didn't tell anyone he was leaving. So the Jazz couldn't trade him a la Paul George,
Yes.
and make that type of deal. So, but if you could get Walker at like 4 years, 80, you hit a grand slam.
Oh,
It's
that's
super
awesome.
cheap.
Yeah.
I think 25, you're happy. 4 years, 120 million is probably a little rich for me. You might do 4-year, 120 if you can get a team option for the 4th year. And then it's 3 years, 30 million a year.
Yeah.
He's like a piece of your team going forward.
Oh, absolutely.
And like clearly there was a ton of interest in him at the trade deadline that the Jazz passed on. Like I think you can always move a rim running, defensive minded, big who can catch lobs and set good screens and has become one of the better rebounders in the NBA and is like the second best shot blocker behind Wemby.
Yeah, and I think if you can do like 4-year 100 and then also front load it, like you said, like maybe he makes 28 this year, something like that, and then it's like similar to the Nicholas Claxton contract, then like in 3 years, maybe in a year or 2, you draft a center in the draft and it's like you need to move on, then it's like he's going to have interest because like you said, he is a very positive interior defender.
But Walker's also said he's interested in re-signing and getting that deal done.
Yeah.
And Walker, knowing him the little bit that I do, just because I cover the team, I've been here since he's been here. I bet he's the kind of guy who would value security over like, let me get every dollar.
Okay.
Like, I'm not sure he's the guy who's going to be like, if I don't get 5 years, I don't even know if he can sign 5 years. I think that might be the max. 4 years and 140 or whatever, 130, I'm not going to do it. He might be the guy who's like, what's fair? What are the other guys around the league doing? Nick Claxton got it. Cool.
Yeah.
Give me the same thing. Give me $1 million more a year because of inflation.
Yeah.
League inflation.
Yes.
And that might be the deal. So I bet it gets done though this summer. I would think it gets done.
Okay.
Unless you take Common Malawach and you trade him.
Yeah.
In all honesty, which is on the table. I'm not saying for the Jazz, but I'm saying like that's a situation that could play out.
Yes. Okay, we have a few more questions about the Ainge stuff.
Yeah, happy to get into it.
From Quinn. Reports from Boston media is that the word is that Austin Ainge will be the main decision maker here going forward in regards to basketball operations. Can you confirm if that's true or not?
I can't.
Yeah,
but that is what the role is.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what president of basketball operations is. Like that's what the job is. And I imagine the reason he left Boston is that he was given a lot of power.
Yeah.
He didn't take it to do the same job. You don't laterally move from the Celtics to the Jazz.
Yeah.
So,
from Sad Jazz fan. Do you know if Zanuck is turning down promotions because he likes his current position, or are they just not offering the promotions to him?
So Justin, went to Milwaukee to be the next in line to get a basketball operations job, like a president, I believe.
Yeah.
And didn't get it, and came back to Utah. And I would imagine wanted to get the job to replace Dennis Lindsey. And then when Danny Ainge got it, thought maybe I'll replace Danny Ainge. Like, my initial thought, just because I like Justin personally a lot, he's like one of my favorite people to see around, like at games, and like his kidney stuff was like, I'm really glad he's doing well.
Yeah.
I felt bad for Justin this morning that he didn't get this opportunity. He may be okay not being the guy who takes the job.
Yeah.
Like he just may be at a point in his life because he's had a health scare, because he has a whole family, because he's not 40 years old anymore. He's not that old, but like he's not maybe he's just like, hey, there's 30 jobs. I'm not going to get one of them. It's not going to come for me. So I'm going to take the role that I think is the role I want to have. And I'm happy with it. And I like where I am. And he's got high school age kids, not to pull back the curtain entirely on Justin, but he did stuff on his family. Like they've written about it at ESPN. So at that point, he may just be like, you know what? This is a good life. I make good money. Like he's still making, he's fine.
Yeah.
He's doing fine.
He's doing good.
Yeah, he's doing good. Maybe he's just like, hey, I've got security here. The Jazz keep me around. If he thinks Austin will keep him around, I mean, Danny did, right? And Ryan has kept him around. He seems like Will Hardy. Like they said, they've never made this came out when Will Hardy got the extension. He's like, we've never once had to have a meeting. We've never once had to call a meeting because we're always talking. We get along. We're always talking. Maybe he's just happy. And you can always hope the grass is greener somewhere else. And being a basketball ops, a VP or a president is like the right thing. And I totally get it if he wants to. I'd totally be thrilled if Justin got that job somewhere else and had that opportunity. But there's only 30.
Yeah.
And
True.
there's a lot worse spots to be than a general manager on a team where you like the people you work with.
Yes.
So I don't know, honestly, at this point with Justin. And I think the health thing does come into play. And the fact that he's gone for it somewhere else and it didn't work out and he came back, all of those things are probably at play. But knowing how people work and competitive people work and how this business works, I would imagine he wants that job.
Yeah.
So, and now that they've hired a younger person there, I'll be curious what his future looks like. I honestly don't know.
Yeah. All right. Last question, I believe, from Garth. With Utah doubling down on Coach Hardy and now hiring Austin, will Utah continue to push the youth movement, or will they keep their options open with the veterans? Furthermore, do they draft best player available or start focusing on actual defenders?
Well, that's the thing. And I said this last year, and I feel the same way. If you don't play defense, you're not best player available.
Yeah.
So what we were just talking about with Pascal Siakam.
Yes.
Now Tyrese doesn't play defense.
Yeah.
Okay, so there are slight exceptions to the rule, but if you're talking about, it's like my fear with Trey Johnson or Jeremiah Fierce.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, Trey, why do you not care about defense?
Yeah.
I don't care that you have the physical tools to play defense. The league is full of great physical bodies. Why do you not care? And you could just be like, oh no, 19-year-olds are good at defense. Go watch Jeremiah Fierce play defense. He's trying. And then go watch a Trey Johnson game. He's not trying. Why aren't you trying? And by the way, Jeremiah Fierce had to carry a bigger offensive load at Oklahoma than even Trey Johnson did because he's the point guard.
Yeah.
And Trey Johnson's not a point guard. So why are you not trying? I can watch Con Knipple, who doesn't have your physical gifts, Trey Johnson. And Con Knipple is busting his butt. He's diving on the ground. He's grabbing loose balls. He's saving the ball. He's throwing the ball off guys' legs. He's trying. His motor's crazy. Trey Johnson, this is your job audition and you're not trying? I don't get that.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to be incensed guy, you owe me this. You don't. You do whatever you want to do. But I some of that I don't get.
Yeah.
Ace Bailey gets into a stance. Ace Bailey gets low and trying to play. Now when he's off the ball, he's not trying, and it's a red flag. I don't get it. But at least there's like moments where he's like really trying. And early on, I saw it from Trey Johnson, and this is not to be anti-Trey Johnson. I like Trey Johnson quite a bit.
Yeah.
Go back and listen to our podcast. I like him quite a bit. Like, we talked about Colin Knippel being the best shooter in the draft. Like, Trey Johnson's ability to get to different threes actually might make him a better shooter.
Yeah.
That like he will get to his own shot off the dribble a lot and really easily, might actually make him a more valuable shooter than Con. But like, the defense is so bad.
Yeah.
It's like, why do you not care?
Something I'll say is
So
like,
you're not best player available if you don't play defense.
Yeah.
That's what I'm always going to say, especially this high in the draft.
yeah. If Trey Johnson not only had the like effort of Jeremiah Fears, if he had the energy of Jeremiah Fears on
Yeah.
defense, he's the guaranteed third pick in the draft, I feel like.
He might be second.
Yeah, like exactly.
No, he honestly might be better than Dylan Harper.
Yeah.
If he tried defensively at 6'6" with a 6'10" wingspan and a 37.5-inch vertical, shooting 40% from three the way he does,
Yeah.
he is the second pick in the draft.
Yeah.
Which is the value of like, if you get him to try on defense in the NBA, you got the second best player behind Cooper Flagg. Like,
Yeah.
that is the upside with Trey Johnson that I'm not sure you get from any other player in this draft.
Yeah.
But where was it, dude? Why did I not see it ever?
And that's, I mean, I'd have to actually look it up, but like, I'm sure the sixth pick to the second pick is an extra like $2 million on your contract. Or
At
something.
least, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
yeah, that's worth being the second pick. Yeah, it's good to be the second pick.
Yeah.
Yeah, way better than being the fifth pick. In all honesty, financially, much better.
yeah.
So, yeah, that's a mindset shift. Sorry, I know that's not the question that was asked, but like, if you don't play defense, I don't think you're best player available.
Yeah.
Especially this high.
And that's something interesting is like, other than Cooper Flagg, like we just pointed out Ace Bailey, Colin Knippel, some of these guys who have the smarts and like the energy on defense, but you're not looking at anyone, I feel like, from like 2 to 8 where you're like, he could be a really good defender in the NBA.
Even like Common Malawash is probably a better lob catcher than he is like great defensive player right now.
Which is something interesting about this draft.
Yeah, it's where Connor Murray Boyles, again, who we haven't talked about him. I don't want to just throw out random names that we haven't really dug into or gotten people ready for in the draft yet. Like, he's the second best defender in the draft, probably in that conversation. It's like, that's really valuable.
Yeah.
It's why the upside for Taylor Hendricks is still really high. It's why I like wouldn't give up on Cody Williams. Like, I think Cody's going to be a good defensive player when he gets stronger and adds some weight. So there's a lot of value there.
And that's
and maybe VJ. Maybe VJ's this guy we throw in 2 to 8. It's like, that's the next defender.
Yes. But even then, like, I think we talked about this. Like, I feel like he's more of like a defensive playmaker than actually like a lockdown defender.
Right now, for sure.
Yeah. But he has that ceiling for sure.
He's a steals and blocks guy, not a lockdown guy.
Yeah. Anyways, let me reiterate this question so we can get into it. Will Utah continue to push the youth movement, or will they keep their options open with the veterans?
They're not going to get old quickly.
Yeah, no.
So they're going to stay young.
Yeah.
Even if they wanted to get older, they're still going to stay pretty young.
Yeah.
I don't think it's like, let's start building around Colin Sexton, John Collins, and Lauri Markkanen. I don't think that happens. I do, like I said, I think there's a real chance the Jazz could trade Lauri for like a 24-year-old guard who like didn't fit at his first spot, and Jalen Green being the obvious name, or like I mentioned some other trades you can make with the Warriors or whatever with John Collins, and I think that should be on the table. Consolidating your age, but no, I don't think the Jazz go out and necessarily do the like Fred VanVleet, Dylan Brooks offseason that the Rockets had, or the Tobias Harris move that the Detroit Pistons made. I don't think you necessarily see that. However, what's interesting is Austin Ainge could say, who's really good is Derek White. And he's 30 years old.
Yeah.
Or, who's still got it is Drew Holiday. Now, I think Drew's too old, but Derek White is probably more in this conversation, where Austin Ainge could say, like, guys, you don't understand the impact Derek White had on the roster once he got to Boston and put them over the edge as a championship contender. And I don't care that he's 31 years old. He's got 5 years of really good basketball left. And if you can get him in Utah, you've got to get him. You've got to get that type of guy. And that will make everything else start to fall in place. I could see that. I could get that. So then again, it's like, what are you giving up? Like, you're not giving up the 5th pick for Derek White, but like the 21st pick? The Celtics are like, yeah, we got to get younger. We got to have an off year next year. Maybe the Celtics, you know what they could do? Like, they could have Jaylen Brown have knee surgery right before the season. Keep Jaylen Brown. No, Jason Tatum's not going to be around next year. Trade Drew Holiday to a contender. Trade Kristaps Porzingis. Trade Derek White.
Yeah.
Get picks and tank next year and try and get a top 5 pick.
True.
Because they own their own pick. And then say, great, we got Cam Boozer coming back to play with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, who both just took the season off to have surgery.
Yeah.
One on their knee, one on their Achilles. And then we run it back with a young core that's still young enough to rebuild around with a bunch of financial flexibility all of a sudden.
True.
Like, that might be the smart thing to do.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
And for the second part of their question, they said best player available or focus on actual defenders. I think you do best player available when you're picking at 5
Yeah.
and want it to be higher than that. So I have a game for you.
Okay.
Earlier I asked you Trey Johnson or Fears, and you said Trey. So we're going to do a king of the hill here. Okay.
You're making me put out a draft board, which I don't want to do and I'm not going to do, but okay.
Would you take VJ or Trey?
I honestly don't know.
You don't know. I think that one's a toss-up as well. And then you have Con and Ace, but I think from just my perspective, I feel like it sounds like you've been the highest on Con.
I think, in all honesty, if I had to do like a quick draft board, it gets really hard.
Yes.
I would probably go Cooper 1.
Yes.
Dylan 2.
Okay.
I'd probably go Ace Bailey 3.
Okay. Yeah.
I went back and listened to our podcast on Ace, because one of the things that's hard to do with this is like, you watch a player, you really study them, and then you get away from them for a while, and you like watch the next guy, and you're like, man, he's really good. That guy can really play, and you kind of forget of all the film you watch. So I went back and listened, and it was like, we were really high on Ace Bailey.
Really high, yeah.
And I'm like, oh yeah, he's really good.
He's awesome.
He's really tall. He makes crazy shots. He's like a really good weak side shot blocker. Like, I'll probably still go with 3 because I think the star upside is really high there.
Absolutely.
And I still, again, I think the basement is pretty high. So I'd probably go him at 3. I might go Con 4. VJ 5.
Okay.
But it might be, I mean, Trey, VJ, I don't think you care either way.
Yeah.
And they're both really good options.
Yeah.
Like, they're both really good players. Trey's like offense is so good.
It's crazy.
And he's going to be a really good scorer in the NBA. I really like it. I think that's really exciting. I wish he did a couple things better, but like, I think some of the things he doesn't do well, like getting to the paint right now, probably will change in the NBA. I think you'll teach him how to do it and you'll figure out how to get there. Like, his handle is good enough that he'll learn how to get around players and then use his physical tools as he gets stronger.
Yeah.
Then again, VJ, like, man, like the best athlete in the draft is really enticing and accidentally scored 15 points a game. It's like, it's really, really cool. It's a cool player and like really shot the net off the rim, as they say, during Big 12 play. Didn't do it to start the year and didn't do it to end the year, but really did in the heart of his schedule. So there's some exciting stuff there.
Yeah.
Jazz are going to get a good player.
That's what I'm saying.
That's ultimately, I think, what you got to recognize. And then Fears would be 7, I guess 6 of that group, number 6. And like, I think I'm not going to guess, but like maybe Derek Queen could even be above him.
Yeah.
So some of those other guys. That's probably, but like if you were to ask me next week, I might be totally different because it's just, the guys are really close.
Yeah.
They're really tightly bunched together. But yeah, I do really like Con Knipple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's it.
You?
I would say
Cooper and Dylan 1 and 2.
Yeah. And then I think it would still be Ace. I think I'm still really high on Ace. I think that, and like it all depends on team. And we talked about how drafting for fit is dumb, but I think that Con is going before the Jazz at 5. I think that could be a hot take, but I think Con and VJ are like between Charlotte and Philly. Those are both really good fit picks.
They are, yeah. They both make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And they're not like crazy reaching on a guy that you should have traded down for and got later in the draft.
Yeah. So I would say like with how everything is shaking up, I think the Jazz should take Trey at 5.
Okay.
In my own head of how the draft will go.
Hey, there's a chance that VJ and Con Knipple go 3-4.
Yeah. And
then you've got Ace Bailey and Trey Johnson sitting on the board for you at 5.
Yeah. And of everyone we've done, of course, excluding the 2 guys who are going 1 and 2, I would want, like, if he's available, take Ace at 5 for me. That's where I
think so too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. Just because the shot making and the upside is there. All right. Well, and we're gonna we'll do like a real hardcore draft. Pre-draft, like maybe we'll record Monday, and then was the draft on Wednesday or is it Thursday, Friday, right?
Yes.
25th and 26th is the Thursday, Friday. Like probably Wednesday, we'll have to do a second podcast that week that's just like pure draft stuff.
Okay. Yeah.
We'll do that. I mean, what else are we going to be talking about anyways, unless the Jazz have extended some guys before, which you can do after the last day of the finals. You can start signing guys to extensions. So the Jazz could get Walker Kessler done when the Thunder win the finals.
Yeah.
I think is what's going to happen. All right. Thanks everyone for listening. This is a long podcast, but I appreciate everyone who tuned in. And it's been fun talking about the draft. We'll do one more, probably top 6 guy. Maybe we'll do 2 more. I don't know if we need to do Common Malawash.
Yeah, I don't.
But maybe Derek Queen, and then we'll move into the 20s, which will be exciting to do. And then follow us on Twitter at Ben's Hoops, at Holt Sports, same place at Blue Sky. Read us at KSLSports.com. We'll be back next week.